I am Miles Weimer.
My name is Hannah.
Hi, my name's Catherine.
Hello, my name is Stacia Bonert.
Yeah, I'm Gavin McDonald.
I'm Danny.
My name is Edsky Olger.
My name is Joe Johnson.
Is there a kind of style of writing you like? It can be poetry or it can be anything really.
I feel like any type of writing is pretty cool. Like, it's impressive when you can make any type of writing sound really articulate, or like, just kind of display exactly what you want to say on word. I think that's pretty awesome, because I always struggle with saying out loud even what exactly my thoughts are. So putting your thoughts onto paper is pretty impressive in general, no matter what kind of style it is. But personally, if I had to choose to write in any kind of style, it would be free writing, because again, I don't really like restrictions on what I write. So
I like poetry. I don't know.
Like, I learned all the different styles of writing, and I'm sure if you asked me today, I would probably not remember most of them, but if you said it, I'd be like, oh, sure. I don't know, just like free writing. Like, write however you want to write, make whatever you want to make. I think you can do so much with words. That, I don't know, I'm a big person about not being categorized, so I think even categorizing writing, because writing is something that's so personal, and it's very individual, so I think just like you writing that is special, personal.
Something that I'm interested in doing is songwriting, but again, lyrics are so close to poetry, which hence is probably why I've never been very good at songwriting, but I wish I could be. But lately, because I'm studying filmmaking, writing scripts is something that I've been into lately.
Prose. I mean, I like poetry and I do appreciate it, but I really like prose.
Okay.
Kind of third person kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I think words determine everything. And I like that words can be universal. I like when one word means several different things. I know that's not about like influence, but I like that in like different countries or different places, like one word here can mean a different word here and a different word here. And I think it ties into like our culture and understanding each other. Words can be taken very seriously. I mean, if you think about it, everything is words. Like the presidential campaign. Thank you. I couldn't think of the word. That's just all words, and people are so easy to take what people say to heart. They put so much emphasis on so many like specific words, like hate is emphasized, but it's also related to a feeling.
And the way that you connotate words together doesn't necessarily connotate to a different person the same way. So I think the way that you arrange words and the more carefully you pick them, the more you're going to express what you're trying to actually say.
I personally don't like to use the word hate too much. I'll say I hate this assignment, but I don't use it for people. Like, I don't say I hate that person, because I think it's a very strong word, and I'll use dislike, because I just personally think that the word hate carries a lot of negative weight to it that, like, I don't think many people deserve to have attributed to them, so kind of like that, I guess.
They can put us into different perspectives. They can kind of show us how other people feel using things like metaphors to describe certain feelings that not everyone has, but everyone is capable of having, in a way.
Words are so important. Words are so important. We see, like, the people we look up to and the people we put in power and the kind of influence they have over people with the things they say, whether it's positive or negative, and it's huge. It can change the world, and that's why it's so important. That's why storytelling is, in general, very important. that's how people learn. That's how people make change to happen.
I think language is probably the most important thing for a human being. I think language is how we think. I think words are really important because that's how it's how we express ourselves. It's how we are able to communicate with other human beings. And I think writing is incredibly important because it's the foundation of history, pretty much, of how we accounted history and how we tell stories, not just through writing, but also through just pure language, just how we speak.
Words are an amazing thing. They can hurt people, they can help people. They're how we communicate.
I think my words influence others just because I feel like throughout the world there's a bunch of different opinions, and so the one thing that ties us together is that we're all human and we all feel. And so if I write a poem about my feelings, it shows that human connection is based off of more than just political views and the color of your skin or any social status. Feelings are something that ties people together. And
Words are pretty cool. They also can be beautifully paired with words when they're written in poetry format.
My definition of poetry is words that go together to form a meaning, sometimes more than its face value.
Oh my gosh, that's a loaded question. I feel like poetry is any sort of written or spoken expression of words that, I don't know, that go together. Gosh, that's, like, everyone knows what poetry is, but not everyone, like, when you are asked to describe it, it's so tough. It's like describing water. Okay. Poetry is just a written form of art expression, like to express yourself in your feelings, I guess. That's the best I can do.
I believe poetry is a conglomerate of words that are meant to invoke different emotions and have different meanings to different people in a manner that you wouldn't normally necessarily write in, whether it's structurally or just the way that you're putting the words together.
Poetry. So it's a kind of storytelling, which could be either narrative or more emotional, like a non-traditional narrative type of storytelling. The way it's told, there are some kind of different structures to it, but then there's also kind of more like a free writing story-based poetry. So I think it's very open. I feel like it's something that's very hard to define.
A form of storytelling where it's very metaphorical. It's more kind of illusions and more of it's not as clear cut as, like, say, if you're reading like a book or anything. It's more of interpretation and more. It's very show don't tell kind of writing. And yeah, that's how I describe my limited understanding of poetry.
I don't know, I think something that makes you think strikes up a conversation, or for some people poetry is just something like to ease your conscience. I know a lot of people write because it relaxes them. It's very rhythmic. I like poetry because it's rhythmic. That's how I define poetry.
Poetry is using words to express the way that you feel in either written, verbal form.
Cool. Poetry to me is anything you want it to be. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's how I view it, because poetry is so abstract and there's no limits, and it's often seen as the feelings that you never thought could make it onto paper, because there's so many different forms of it.
Also, without music, we wouldn't really have poetry at all.
And of poetry when you were younger?
Oh my gosh, I thought it was really hard. I didn't like doing it because I thought it was because I think when I was younger, I always thought like poetry was like making a haiku and stuff like that, which I'm not. I mean, in general, I am okay with expressing my feelings onto word and onto paper, but when it has to be formatted a certain way, I don't really like that because it's like, what's the right word? It's restricting the way you're expressing yourself in a way, and at least to me, it just is that way because it's tougher for me. So I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think I really thought about poetry when I was younger. Like I said, I didn't actively learn it until I was in middle school. So I guess before then it was more biblical examples of like psalms or like singing. So I didn't really actively know about it until I started learning it in school.
I couldn't wrap my head around it at first. I was so logical, it had to be a certain way, everything. So I didn't get it until I was in about 7th or 8th grade and someone finally explained that they weren't being literal about this.
When I was younger, well, considering the poetry I probably read, I don't think I thought of it as poetry. I think it was just like a different style of writing. When I was younger, I know I had a preconceived idea that poetry was for like people who are emotional and like brooding and like been through the most tragic situations. So yeah, I guess those are my preconceived notions of poetry.
When I was younger, I definitely don't think I understood it. I mean, now I don't know if I even fully understand like all kind, because I would have to study poetry for a while to really understand everything about it. But when I was younger, I think it just seemed more difficult than anything, because that's something I feel like people can have a natural talent at, but it is something you do have to kind of train yourself and adjust to that kind of style of writing. So when they would make us do exercises, writing exercises towards poetry, like, I don't think I was a fan of it, honestly.
It was fun. It didn't have as much meaning. It was more just rhyming sentences together. You know, more playful.
Oh, I hated poetry when I was younger. I really didn't like it. Now that I'm older, I appreciate it much more. I'm not good at writing it, but when I read it, I'm like, wow, this is actually really good stuff. When I was younger, I couldn't stand poetry. I thought it was dumb.
As a child, I remember reading a bunch of poems and not really liking it because I didn't understand it. And then I realized that there's no concrete meaning for a poem. It's very subjective, and that's when I started to really like poetry.
When I was younger, I used to hate poetry. I used to dislike it so much, but luckily I found a channel on YouTube called Button Poetry, and it made me realize that people speak with wisdom and with their story.
I don't really understand poetry, actually, to be honest. I know a lot of people are like very fluent in poetry, and I think that's really, really cool. But if you gave me a piece of poetry and asked me to like analyze it, I'd be like, it's good. Next. Yeah, I don't understand it, but I do think that it has a purpose. I just do not know what the purpose is. Yeah, poetry's cool.
I think it's changed. I've definitely come to appreciate poetry a lot more now, just because I've been exposed to it more. And like before, I just, like, as I said, I was really only introduced about Shelf Silverstein and his poetry, and I still, like, back then when I was young and I had to do like write poems in English class, I couldn't appreciate them because I didn't really understand the deeper meanings behind them, but now I do. I feel like I can understand and appreciate that more.
Now I feel like it's such a large part of my life. because I do forensics, and it probably takes up most of my time with forensics and a lot of my Tumblr feed probably, and Instagram, because it's just, now I understand where they're coming from, and I feel like there's just more of a connection to be made.
What do you think of it now?
They are normally more meaningful than like just normal statements. So if you put together a poem about something, it's more like it has more emotion in it than just a normal statement. So it's like an emotional statement.
Now I think it's really cool. It's really interesting because it's a way into seeing someone's ideas in a different light, more of a feeling in a way, or like a memory. But also what's kind of really popular today are like stand-up, like spoken word types of poems. That's really cool. That's not something I was exposed to when I was younger, so I think that's also something I'm really interested in, and I'd like to see more like spoken word poems because I think they're really cool.
I think there are instances where we're using poetry when we don't realize it. Like, poetry can be someone expressing how they feel in arithmetic terms, or even just like talking to people can be considered poetry, I guess. So I think it's a great way to be able to express yourself, or to be able to try to communicate something.
And now, I absolutely love poetry. Poetry, without it, in this world, it's equal to no music and no foundation.
I think texting or talking is important. Honestly, I think both of them are important. I know there's a really bad stigma with technology and how it's affecting us, but in a positive sense, I think technology has brought us really far. And although talking in person is viewed as better than texting, to me, there's always pros and cons to everything. So overall, I'm not quite sure. I think talking is more effective and beneficial, but texting definitely has some pros. Like, I text my grandma. I never thought I'd be able to, which is crazy, because she lives across the world, so that's awesome. And then talking is important too, because you really get to sense others' emotions, and that's how you connect with people. It's just more real. And then what's the difference between in person and through a message? Okay, so I sort of mentioned that.
Well, I think that communication in itself is important, and I think that text messaging has really taken away from the way that we show our emotions. So if you're trying to message someone saying that I love you, or I miss you, Grandma, that type of thing, doesn't sound the same if you were to call them or if you were to say it in person. I feel there's a lot that's missing from face-to-face communication that there isn't in text, like verbal cues. Someone could say, yeah, I'm having a great day, but they could be crying while they're texting it. And so you never really know. It's harder to pick up like sarcasm. So I say that texting is important. It's a great way to be able to communicate when they can't talk on the phone or talk in person, especially like across country or across the world. But I think that face-to-face communication or things like Skype and phone calls are better ways to be able to communicate with people.
They're both important. I'd say if you talk in person all the time, there's probably something you're not telling, just because it's not always easy to say everything in person. But the more you do it, the more you get used to it. So I think both are equally as important. You can show emotion and like passion for in-person things, and in text you can say things without the emotion, so things don't seem either as harsh or as, as much of a big deal, but sometimes it's not that important to like have that emphasis for a question or something.
You're sending me all these messages and you're asking like, what does this mean? What does this mean? And so it's like, what does it mean when you say, what are you doing tonight? It means, what are you doing tonight? You know, it's so difficult when it comes to texting because there's so many ways to perceive things. Like what you read and what I read can mean two different things, especially nowadays when there's abbreviations and like, is acronyms the right word?
Yeah.
Acronyms for everything. Yeah, that's right. I don't know why I'm acting the way I am,
But like, I'm not really good at composing my thoughts when I'm in person, so when I text someone, I'm able to much more like write what I feel and then kind of analyze it and then rewrite it, kind of like edit it and stuff, and then send it to that person.
Okay.
But in person, I like it because it's much more confrontational. I can understand what the person is feeling. But with texting or emailing, I like it much more because I can organize my thoughts in a clear, concise. With the human interaction, like right now, it's all improv. I can't like analyze a paragraph in my head and then say it to you. I have to think of it on the spot.
important in person, all the way. So when it comes to words in text versus in person you understand what they're trying to get. You understand the different inflections in their voice, the different enunciations, like what is important based on what they say. You can't really get that in text. You're missing just so much emotion and character and personality in text.
Well, personally, I think both are very important. Probably face-to-face is a lot more important and less done nowadays, but I think for me personally, it's a lot easier to convey my thoughts through text message or like not face-to-face, just because I have more time to think about what I want to say. Like there aren't any awkward pauses and such, and like no fillers like like. So I think texts are important when it comes to when you want to have a very like fast and quick and convenient brief conversation. Like so, like also with text, it's harder to convey emotions and like with sarcasm especially. I know me personally, I have trouble sometimes detecting other people's sarcasm, and then when I try and use sarcasm, it fails and other people can't tell. So like those kind of things also are better to do face to face, because then you can like with text you don't have eye contact, you don't have facial expressions, you don't have body language. All of that is really important to like very important nonverbal communication too.
Words influence us because it's in our everyday lives and it tells us a story. It tells us a story, emotions, opinions, but also if you're saying hi in person, there's body language and face expressions. If it's sad, it's happy, but in text message, there's no emotion there. There's no body language. You can't really tell what they're saying, if it's sarcasm or if it's something they're trying to joke around with. You just can't really tell. You don't really know what's exactly going on, and you just don't really know. With stories, words influence us every day. And with like, I love you, I hate you, I like you, you choose what to say. There's a joke. Thank you so much for watching.